let's begin. We're going to just Hannah and I just want to introduce everyone to Hannah. Hannah, will you say hello to everyone?
Hi everyone. Nice to see faces, put faces to names.
Yeah. So yeah, we wanted to start by sharing this forum with you guys that Hannah and I have been building across Europe. Hannah's been living in Italy and I've been here, and we've been uploading all of the content from the WhatsApp group for the past couple of years and uploading it here because the main point is so that our knowledge, our conversations could be found, could be searched, can be continue to be useful, and we can build up this database of composting knowledge, right? So yeah, we just wanted to give you a little crash course in how it works. It's obviously quite new technology. Like, I hadn't even heard of Mighty Networks, and we just did Hannah did a search on what were the best platforms, and this one was the most highly rated in terms of being a platform to host communities and facilitate a lot of the stuff that, you know, is beyond WhatsApp. So we're thinking we want to keep the WhatsApp group for kind of for chatting and exchanging little bit you know, kind of small communication, but we wanted to have this as the main place for the community. So if you've got an important question that you'd like the answer to be recorded for, we encourage everyone to post it on the Mighty Network, and then it will be able to be you know, returned to. You'll be able to search it. So that's the main thing. So I just want to show you how it works. The other day I was wanting to, someone asked me for a good way of building shredders. It's come up a number of times, and one of the things that I think is awesome is the idea of bicycle powered shredders. So there is a project that makes this, and so to find it, you should be able to just search shredders and scroll through the list of posts where people have talked about shredders. Maybe if I put shredders bike, how about bicycle shredders? Here we go. This post here, I can find the link: pedal powered and motor powered shredder. That's just a little example of how we can use the database, the forum, to find anything that we want. So we want to look at bokashi because that's incredibly useful for all local composting, and we can find all the posts that have happened in the last 2 years that have featured conversations about bokashi, and it tends to order things in order of like the most engagement that they had, the most conversation. So that's one feature, the search feature, and the other one is topics. Topics is what we are very much refining at the moment. So we've kind of come up with this A to Z of relevant, the most sort of followable. So the topics are all for following. So this idea that, you know, all of us are doing composting in different ways, and all of these new old sort of practices are going to be relevant for our different circumstances. So like, I am a follower of biochar. I love burning wood to charcoal. I am following the biochar topic because I'm interested in everything that happens in that realm. I'd recommend following the topics as a good starting place to get good feedback information from the network. So agroecology is there, but we're very much like, this is very much in a beta stage of development. We'd love your feedback on what should and shouldn't be topics. At first we were like, we just topicked everything that
everything in there.
Yeah, and like then we realized that people weren't actually going to follow actinobacteria. Like it wasn't quite as much of a sort of you know, a topic to stand on its own. So we've then put that under other main sections here. So I think actinobacteria went under microscopy or best practice. So this is the current list of topics, and we'd encourage all of you, if you want to do a post, which could be a really good question. So you can post anywhere on the homepage just by, like, any social media platform, share what's on your mind. You can ask a question here. So like Peter did here, let's go to discovery, and look, we can see the top posts. And so it started, top posts are often a good question. And the reason they become a top post is because they've had tons of conversation. They've generated tons of conversation. So, you can see here loads of great ideas, coffee bokashi from Martyn, different recipes, formulas, have all been shared. Ideas are all under this topic, so under this this post. So you can search for posts in top posts. You can search you can search topics, and you can just search keywords. So I think I've explained that. Other features, just like crash course running through it. We've got an events thing here, which we haven't really started using yet, but we are going to as we get better organized with the community. And this will be where we'll add our events to the calendar. So like I'm trying to get Matt Powers to talk to us in December. I will put that up as an event, and that will enable you to, hopefully there'll be we can kind of set what you get notifications for. So we should be able to set a little notification for everyone if an event's coming up. But we've been advised not to have notifications for most things because it gets too noisy for people. So that's events. And then there's also groups, which is another kind of unfleshed out area of the platform so far, but we've just put some very early projects. So Peter, like for example, you could get all of your staff in Loop Frome to be in a group if that was of value to you. And then your group could have its own feed in the network, in the forum. Here we can see a list of members. If you want to speak to someone directly through the network, you can click on the members. Let's go back to network here. Click on the members, and you can search through, and you can be like, oh yeah, it was that conversation with Jules I was having, and I want to chat to Jules. There you go. So you can have one-on-one conversations with people as well. And then eventually we're also going to upload some courses, which we've been working on this course for, like local composting to heal the earth, which we'd like to host through the network as well. And then that will become another sort of perk of being part of the forum, is access to the courses when you need them in your pocket. So I think that's all from me. I'm going to pass to Hannah to sort of explain what we're doing with how this is going to work, because people have said, like, how can I invite people to the network? How can I share it? And the truth is we haven't had that very clear yet, because we've been hosting the Mycelium memberships through our main website, which is something we still want to do. So that is done through these this page here, where you guys mostly signed up for, and there's 4 different members now: individual, joint, allotment, society, school, or startup. And all of you guys, anyone this is basically for full Mycelium membership. So that means not just access to the forum, but also some of the other stuff we offer, like big discounts on the composting systems like Joras, and also, I guess, the WhatsApp group. So yeah, Hannah, over to you. We wanted to could you show people how?
Yeah.
I'm going to co-host you and show people how they can invite others to the network, so we can really, yeah, get this space working
Yeah.
and being active. So one sec, I'll just co-host you. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, cool. So I think the most direct way, it depends whether people want to join as a full Mycelium member. So like what you guys have in terms of being having access to the WhatsApp group and the discounts, and also the bi-monthly meetups that you do. So that would obviously be sharing this page to people, this link to people, and people can sign directly up by here. Otherwise, we're starting another membership directly with the Mighty Network, which only allows access to the forum, in which case there is another link. So I think the best way, here it is. Yeah, I'll share these two links to in the chat of Zoom. So one's for the full membership and one's just for the forum membership. That seems to be the easiest, most direct way to get other people to join up.
Yeah, we did some research into like how we should run this platform, and it was quite a lot of the feedback was that for people to really engage with the network, it needs to be basically it's that thing where, you know, if you pay for something, you use it, and you value it, and you contribute and you engage with it, more than if it's a free thing, and it's kind of, it doesn't engage you as much. So we do think basically our project with this network is to create a really valuable educational space, and we are moderating it, hosting it, and the more members we get, that if we could get people to sign up, we set it at £4 a month just to sort of have access to this community online, and our thinking is that will enable us to put the work in to make it really useful and held, and basically, yeah, administer it well and keep it working. So again, this is a it's all a great experiment, but it's really great to see people that have used it so far. There's been some really good conversations, and yeah, as Martyn says, for the price of a pint a month, you can kind of get access to this space, which is kind of what we want. We don't want to, I was thinking it potentially should be, could be less, but at the same time, the more we want to be as transparent as possible with the finances, and if this works more, then it will enable us to do things like make the courses that are going to take investment.
Yeah, that is a point, because
cheaper.
Once you have the pay for the membership, once you pay for set up the online courses, obviously our monthly subscription goes up as well. So,
right.
Yeah, that will cover that.
So yeah, you guys all get full access to this space because you know what you contribute already, and the value you give, but we'd like it if you would invite people to join us, and grow the community by sharing the link that Hannah will share with you, and that will enable us to grow the network. It costs us, I think it's £40 a month, isn't it, Hannah, to host this, to have this platform. So but then it's going to be more if we've got courses that we also sell. And the more members we get, the more this important information and all of our project, I guess all of the exposure of our different projects, the further reach it's going to be able to have. And we also wanted to say that because you guys are like the early adopters of this community, that if you help us grow this, we're not like in this to sort of, you know, make Old Tree Soil grow into a big business or of any kind. It's a community platform. We just want to provide good local composting knowledge and equipment to make more living soil. But so our thinking was that if you help us grow this, we will over time be able to waive your own, or waive or reduce your own memberships, because we can't, you know, it's a team effort, isn't it? So we're going to sort of see how it evolves and be adaptive with the economics. But yeah, I do think it's got real potential to create a valuable knowledge hub and a valuable community space. So yeah, and I guess, are there any direct questions about the network that you feel like we haven't, the forum that we haven't answered yet, that people could chip in with before we go and introduce our new members and open it up? Oh yeah, Ryan, hey man.
Hi, nice to meet you all. So I'm Ryan, and I've previously been the Strategic Communications Coordinator at the Permaculture Association Britain. Quite a mouthful. So I worked for the Permaculture Association for 8 years, and they were using for their online courses Coursecraft, who then closed with 3 months' notice, and they had to jump to a different platform for their online education offering. And what they chose was Mighty Networks. So that was set up just like 2 months before I left that role. So I have some experience of Mighty Networks behind the scenes, and then I'm also an educator member, and they use Mighty Networks for that purpose. So I've seen how it's worked in the early days there and how it's not working as well.
Okay.
So what you said about notification seems quite pertinent, and you do need a good mix of enough notifications to keep people coming back, which is partly to do with, well, it's mostly to do with there being enough content there, and then individuals to set the notification settings so that it's not just noise in the inbox with everything else.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is I like that Mighty Networks offers online courses, and I can see a lot of potential for collective education here, like at a meta level, like how do you start a composting business, as well as like how do you compost at home really effectively. I don't know what competition there is for accessible online courses at the moment, but if we could as a collective education team offer that, there's then some financing options there too. And I'm happy to set up a meeting with between Hannah, Thomas and Gemma, who's the education coordinator at the Permaculture Association. And I wonder whether there might be an option to run a composting course through the Permaculture Association online Mighty Network there to reach their much bigger numbers.
Great.
So there you go. I've got everything out. Who else wants to?
Do you want to just, now you've got the mic, Ryan, just introduce? Yeah, you mentioned that you work for the Permaculture Association, but you also you're a new invitee to this network, and yeah, you're doing some really cool things. Where are you again?
I'm in my kitchen in Ballbridge, which is near Belper in Derbyshire.
Cool.
Just keep zooming out there. So we're in the East Midlands desert of not so many progressive cool things happening, with a few exceptions, some of them in the room. And I'm a founding member of a startup edible and useful plants workers co-op. So we've been going for 2 years. We're a permaculture nursery, and we grow and sell plants and teach courses and now run a soil health hub that we just successfully crowdfunded 1,400 and a bit pound for. So we're producing our own plant feed and vermicompost, and we're inoculating locally produced char. So we will sell biochar,
Yes.
as well as selling peat-free compost from Malcourt and Dalefoot. So that's that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's my most of my time though. I'm a parent. I've got a 4-year-old son and a 1-and-a-bit-year-old daughter who has hand, foot, and mouth, and a partner who has tonsillitis.
Oh no.
So,
God.
and a brain with not enough sleep. So I'm
Oh,
glad to
man.
get here and get out of that
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah.
And would like to hear some more adult conversations. So
Thank you,
next?
Brian. Nice one. Okay, well, in the past we've done a sort of geographical progression on sharing. If we could keep introductions super short, because we've got some presentations we want to hear from people. So let's go through and start with maybe the new members, and then also just hear a few words on just like where you're composting, what your project is, and maybe one other sentence, but keep it as that, so we can get through all these great people. That would be so. Who thinks they're closest to Ryan in Derbyshire? Any immediate hands up? Hey, Sam. Hey, man. Welcome.
Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we got you. Hey.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm going out the Midlands as well, just the West Midlands, just south of Birmingham. Me and my brother are operating the Starbridge Compost Collective that we've kind of just started, to be honest, for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
It's cool. We've got our first few subscribers, so that's cool.
Yeah, really cool. Nice one, Sam. Thanks a lot. And you knew Nev before, so that was a connection. Was that right?
Yeah,
Nev seems to know everyone in this compost world.
We're close. We're close geographically. We're just around the corner, really, from each other. Yeah.
Because what we need is a map of the UK, like almost as the background of the mighty network, that we can have like all of our little dots on. And yeah, that would be another thing to develop. But yeah, Nev, do you want to share any updates? Just say hi briefly. You're presenting later. So
Hi. Yeah, I'm Nev. I'm a compost nerd like most of you. I'm based in the West Midlands, also North Birmingham, and I work a lot in Derby, hence knowing Ryan and the great work he's doing.
Yeah, thank you, Nev. Christina, hello. You're not that far away from. You're in Leicester, right?
I was in Leicester. I'm now in Nottingham.
Oh, okay.
And not too far from Belper, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Nice one.
Yeah, in Nottingham, and yeah, hoping to set up some compost enterprises here with the local schools and hopefully the local community. Yeah, just feeling my way around here.
Yeah, and you did the lab certification, so you can test soil as well, right?
Yeah, I want to use my microscope more.
Yes, yeah. There's quite a few of us with microscopes with more intention to use them here. Fab. Okay. Anyone else want to? There's no necessity, but to speak now. But Amy, obviously, thank you, Amy, for sending some people our way, and you're also still you're at Stamford Hall, aren't you? And Betty, hello. Well, sorry, Betty's joining us from the Netherlands here, so I just wanted to say hello to Betty because we haven't seen you yet. Amy and Betty.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi everybody, I'm joining from the Netherlands. I found you on Instagram, and it's very nice that we can meet here, and that you hosted on Mighty. And we have initiative in Amsterdam, and we're trying to set up community composting site with different systems with Bokashi and Tamla. And so yeah, I have like 5 million questions, and I'm very happy to have found you all. So
brilliant. Thanks, Betty. Nice one. Excellent. Amy, sorry, yeah, I said hello and then.
Hi, yeah, I am at Stamford Hall in Leicestershire. I have got pasta in my face, and I'm really cozy, and it feels really nice after being on the field all day. So yeah, hello everyone. I had some visitors from Derby today as well. So the Derby vibe is thick, it's strong, it's great. The Midlands is bubbling.
Midlands is bubbling. Excellent. Oh, lovely. Jess, could you remind me where you are? You're based with Amy, right?
Yeah, Amy down there, we're in North Kent. And at the moment we're being funded to go into community gardens and do some training with them on their compost and help them set up systems. Brilliant. And they've got a school wormery thing coming up. That's what we're doing.
Fantastic. Nice one. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. We've got Kat in Glasgow. Kat and Peter and Martyn are all going to share with us, so we'll save that for that. And then also Elizabeth, you would you be able to say hello to us? Are you there? Just tell people briefly what about Griffin and all of the amazing stuff you're doing.
So hi everyone. Yeah, Elizabeth Westaway. I'm in Swansea, South Wales. So I'm Director of Growing Real Food for Nutrition, small community enterprise, and it's about exploring how to grow and measure nutrient-dense food. So sort of promoting the use of the Brix refractometer as a little monitoring tool so that you can actually see whether you're improving your soil microbiome by using all these regenerative practices and exceptional composting and liquid amendments. So hopefully we'll all be growing amazing quality food with better composting everywhere. So thanks.
Brilliant, thank you, Elizabeth. And Greg, could I ask you to say hi, dude? I remember now you did the elderflower champagne workshop I did about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. That was ace. Yeah, thanks.
Nice one.
Yeah, I'm down in Dorset. I studied ecology and permaculture for like nearly 10 years. Self-training in mycology for like the past 4. Really getting some good ground skills in lab work and stuff. Built a lab this year, and just about to start a community farm to take mycelium growing to like an industrial landscape scale level. I started a master's degree at the Eden Project this year as well, down in Cornwall, doing ecological restoration. And I'm just looking to like do loads of projects and get a load of research into regenerative farming and using mycelium in those ways to build soil.
Amazing.
That's kind of where I'm at.
So cool. Thanks, Greg. The mushroom growing section of the forum could be really exciting. And Matt, you're another mushroom grower. Would you be up for saying hi to us, Matt, and telling us about Fungi Folks just briefly?
Yeah, sure. Just chopping up squash for dinner and jam. Fungi Folks, new business with a friend. We've been building labs too, and we're going to grow a few different kinds of mushrooms and compost the spent blocks. And besides that, I just finished a PhD in microbiology and DNA sequencing, and I'm working on another project called Farming with Fungi, which is at the Botanic Gardens in Wales. And the idea is a bit along the lines of what Greg just mentioned, getting fungi going with the plants as well, and measuring how the plants respond, that kind of thing.
Amazing, thank you, Matt. That's so cool. Brilliant. Mary, you're another mycologist, would you say?
No, in the making, hopefully. So I'm based in Edinburgh, and I've just started my master's in soils. And I also help run the Mycology Society at Edinburgh. And we've got some exciting stuff coming up for the society, which will involve some lab stuff. So that's going to be exciting. But yeah, I'm really sort of at the beginning of my journey, but I am sort of taking the fungal route with soils now. So yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks, Mary. And David, I haven't introduced you yet, but you joined recently. Hello, David.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Dave. I've been like a long-term volunteer on organic farms across the country, and now I'm just hooking up with Amy at Stamford Hall, CSA, and you're just interested in obviously, linking compost to growing food, basically.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, David. I think without further ado, we could invite the first presentation. So, Martyn, would you like to start with your presentation about?
If you can give me screen sharing, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll co-host you.
Thank you. While Tom's setting that up, Betty, the company I work for, Agriton, are based in the Netherlands, Amsterdam. There's some amazing projects in Amsterdam. Cool. Right. So let me just share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see me. Okay. So I was asked by Tom to do a little introduction to myself and just explain a little bit about what I can help you to with all the kind of projects you guys are doing. First things first, there are people that have got in contact with me in respects to let me have a look at what you're doing. I'm really, really, really interested in what everyone's got to offer. Luckily, I work for a company where we're trying to grow more education. So actually, I'm really interested in what you're doing. How we can support you, but also it's for me for learning. So I met Nicky Scott last night, and I learned so much of him. I spent some time with Nev as well. We've got some cool things planned later on for next year. But also, I'm hoping to be able to provide some courses for all of us to move and progress on. So if you haven't heard of Agriton before, Agriton is a company based in Westley in Tiverton. We're part of a European network. So we are the only distributor of EM manufactured products in the UK, and we've been going for 25 years. If you haven't heard of EM, these are the logos that you may or may not have seen of. If you haven't heard of EM, have a look at the EMRO website, emrojapan.com, and have a look at the work that Dr. Heger has done in respects to effective microorganisms. The thing is with microorganisms, and I spoke to Tom when we first kind of had an initial conversation. The reason why I know Tom so well is he buys some of our products off us. And we had a big long chat about obviously getting involved with Mycelium network. And one thing I know Tom will definitely vouch for me. I'm definitely not in it for money. It's one of those great positions I've been in where we're doing very well as a business, and actually the part that I work in is all about kind of understanding more about microorganisms. And for people like Matt Powers, who has kind of brought microorganisms to the limelight and kind of put a spotlight on them. There is some really, really good stuff we can do with EM, and also we want to teach people on how to make them as well. So actually, have a chat with us if you ever want to have a look at microorganisms in general. I want to just put this in as a slide. It's a really important part. One thing I pride myself on, and I spoke to composters last night in Devon, in Exeter. We can't do this alone. Unfortunately, the soil situation for UK is, there's no other way of putting it, it's dire. We're getting to a point where we've utilised the soil so drastically and so hard that there is no living life left in them. And with the support of all you guys, and obviously trying to make sure that we bring that life back in, but we have to do this together. And one thing, I take my hat off to Tom doing what he's doing on the money. Even I only pay £8 a month, and sometimes I feel like I should really pay a bit more to help you through this thing. But if we can grow this network, it would be really cool to be able to share our experiences. So I want to talk a little bit about natural farming and no-till. And this is not to do with any kind of there's right or wrong. It's just kind of to emphasize something that I learned from a guy called Josh Sparks recently. And Josh Sparks I'll talk to about later on. Josh Sparks has educated me a lot about the difference between natural farming and no-till. And when I talk about composting now, I really think about that end result. And the end result is the key thing. Why are you composting? Why are you doing what you're doing? And when I started looking at no-till as a system, I started to think about kind of, how that system works. Now, no-till as a system, as you can see, is actually quite an easy system. It's not complicated. You input compost onto the top of cardboard, and then you plant, and you don't disturb the soil underneath. But actually, one thing in this system is that you have to either buy in the compost, which no one wants to really do, or make your own compost. And what I've seen so far with most of the no-till systems I've seen is that the soil that they put on top is rubbish. There's no other way of putting it, and that's because it's bought in. It just hasn't got any living life. And natural farming has its place as well, but you can do a hybrid. Natural farming is utilizing the soil that you already have, or creating that biodiversity in the soil. So I'm not saying that no-till is covering up the issue, but it is not helping the soil underneath. And especially with making your own compost, the issue that you normally have is time. And to make compost, as you all know, it takes some time to be able to do. And there are ways of kind of speeding up the process efficiently in a way. But the product that I deal with is Bokashi, which is really setting more the natural farming. So Bokashi as a system is a soil improver. It's not a compost, but it's really thinking about the carbon and the biodiversity. So the green resource of Bokashi, the problem that we have in the UK is that composting, when we talk about composting, we take 100 tons and we make it into 40. And one thing that kind of doesn't sit really well with me is, where does that all go? It has to go somewhere. And one of the key areas around that is carbon. And this is a little abstract from a report that I read recently. Fermenting, so making sauerkraut or using that kind of system, will conserve more carbon and more nitrogen because it has more organic content. And I'm not saying that composting is a wrong way. I'm just thinking, let's think about that out. What are we trying to achieve at the end? And carbon has a lot of resources. So if you're thinking about trying to retain nutrients, trying to create pockets of moisture, and we've seen this recently in the droughts in the UK, that soil structure needs to be there to be able to store those nutrients. So if you can offer the ability to create more soil structure in your soil, then this is a good thing. And that's where Bokashi as a process comes into play. We're not going to go into Bokashi, as this is not a Bokashi session. What I wanted to kind of point out, and we'll share these slides as well in the forum, is kind of my dream, my dream of what I see in the UK. Food waste is a food resource, and the sooner we as a country realise that actually there's some potential to do stuff with it, the better the world's going to be. And I see them as sort of gold and silver. The gold is actually burying that food waste into the soil, so creating that carbon and nutrient content through a fermentation process. But you can also use that food waste, if you use the Bokashi process, to increase the speed of the composting. Now, I know Tom is definitely a big flag waver of this. Bokashi as a system is using effective microorganisms, which are what we call facultative. So they work in anaerobic, but they also work in aerobic. And the great thing about that is it will speed up that process, but it will also create more biodiversity. And one thing I've noticed with anyone that's kind of used effective microorganisms, it does give you a more depth in the actual soil structure. But I'm working with people like Nev to obviously do a bit more education with councils. Actually, councils themselves we can get them to pick up the food waste, that would be a good start, and actually put it into something. But we have to work with them, and AD plants, and I just wanted to kind of emphasize, I've worked with, done some presentation with councils recently. You can do it in a way where you can create more methane. So using the Bokashi process, you can create more methane to actually create more energy from the food source. So the only thing I personally got against is the digestate. The other side is, there's no other way of putting it. It's just dirt. So the more energy you take out of it is not the best way. But unfortunately, councils have to be bought into some scenarios. But actually, and this is the one I want to emphasize, is that the community bit, actually there's some real ideas there that actually we as a network, we could actually take some of this food waste away from the councils and actually, you know, create some value for them, because one, they're not picking it up. Two, we can create a better compost for the other side. And actually, you know, in respects to storing it, you know, it's not a hazardous waste when you kind of ferment it. But also, garden waste has the same process. So actually, garden waste can also be fermented in the same kind of system. So, you know, you can do exactly the same process as we talk with food waste, but we can also do it with green waste as well. So I just wanted to kind of point this out as a system, and, you know, just to kind of to think about, you know, how we process it in our systems. And we've done loads of tests as a company. You know, this is something we just to make you aware, if you do want full lab testing, I'm going to smile when I say that. If you all do it all at once, it's not going to happen. Just be careful with it. But we have a £700,000 lab at our head office, and I've been told that I can use it whenever I like. So from any we can do full spectrum analysis, we can do full lab tests as well. So actually, if you've got something you really want to kind of push through as a commercial product, we can help with that as well. But I just wanted to kind of show you the stats. If you had, you know, starting material of 13,500, you know, tons of product, and you use traditional composting, that goes somewhere. So if you then look at the nitrogen levels, and this is the key bit, because you have more organic content, you have more mineral and organic nitrogen, and those two are really important because actually they have two values. They have values to the soil. So one's a slow release and one's a quick release as well. But the energy, and this is the bit that I really want to emphasize, the energy is really important. Energy is really important to the soil because it's the same as, you know, how we work. We need that energy in that soil. So yeah, so if you ever want to have a chat with us about, you know, Bokashi as a system, where I've been speaking to Tom today, it looks like some kind of course.
Do this, yeah, it's so interesting. That aerobic composting, which obviously we're huge advocates of, and a lot of us are studying the soil food web because it's, you know, amazing conversion of organic matter into, you know, biodiversity, essentially microbial biodiversity, but it's also oxidating organic matter, which is reducing the energy of it, whereas fermenting with the right microorganisms like the Bokashi system offers is less oxidation, so it's higher energy, right? So yeah, I just could I sort of nudge you forward, Martyn, just because it's got, we've over 10 minutes, but I really wanted you to share about that.
You gave me 15.
I know, it's mad how time flies when you're talking about what you love.
Okay. So I'm going to stop these slides. If you're in London, have a look at Sirius Yard. I'm working with Anthony here. He is working with University of Reading. He has his own soil lab. He's also interested in communicating with other people in the London area. Really good project. He's looking to do a block of flats with Bokashi, someone that would definitely put on your radar. He's also working with Wild Farm Ed. If you haven't heard of them, have a look at those guys. They're really looking at kind of closing the loop when it comes to that system. Josh Spark, I really want to emphasize him. Josh Sparks is a very close friend of us in Agriton. He is by far the most diverse farmer that I've ever met. This is his plan of his farm that he has. He has had subsidies from the guy that used to own Bebo, and they've designed this system. So in the future, they will be asking villagers to bring their food waste to the area, to then bokashi. So he does all bokashi systems in that system. He's got a massive area of composting. Have a look at him on Instagram. He's an amazing guy, and he's going to start closing the loop. So these are all his natural processes. He uses no-till and natural in the process, but he's doing tons of bokashi. So he's developed a system with kind of Iceland. So yeah, he's doing massive amounts. Another project is Iceland as well. So just Google bokashi in Iceland. So these guys are actually working with the councils. They are going to be working, they're in a second phase now. So they've done lots of research, they've done lots of detail in how to collect food waste and utilize it. And they're doing it on a commercial scale. So these guys are definitely one to watch, because they are definitely looking at, kind of completely closing the loop in Iceland across the whole country. So the next couple of years, definitely someone to have a look at. So yeah, there you go. Just a little bit. If you want any more information, chat to me whenever.
Thanks so much, Martyn. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, this, like I said, we want to do a whole like presentation about anaerobic versus aerobic composting, and host Martyn here to really go deeper with that, because it's so interesting. I was listening to Matt Powers the other day, and he talks about the switch for him, which is like antioxidants. When a crop has a special colors, like it's gone, it's deeper colors, or it's fought off, like even like when a vegetable has like a hardened area, it's been producing more antioxidants to fight off, and that means it's got more energy. It's to do with electrons and bioelectricity. It's incredibly interesting, and yeah, we're going to get we want to really flesh that out in the network. So thank you so much for sharing that, Martyn. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Peter, we'd love to hear from you, mate, if you would be up for telling us what you have been doing. Lots of revolutions in Frome happening.
I don't know, there's a lot new, Tom, since we met. I mean, I talked before, we collect food waste from cafes and around, mostly cafes and small businesses around Frome, and then use now 2 rydans to process that. I'm really hoping I get to see I get to meet with Martyn, because I'm really interested in the whole way that we expand or don't expand. And I find what you were saying, I'm just going to go back to this, it's not depressing, but it's like, shit, have we gone down completely the wrong route? There's a little bit of me that's thinking, oh no, anyway,
both.
We come to that.
Need
So
both.
I'm left thinking, is there stuff I don't understand? But no. We've been producing what's apparently really brilliant compost through pretty much conventional and then hot compost with 2 electric trikes to pick things up. So nice and closed. I mean, the main thing, sorry, there's 2 other things I'll just say quite quickly. One is we've chosen to expand through setting up compost creation stations, as we call them. So we've chosen to expand through 2 community-owned and community-run Jura stations. So one with the food box. There's a charity called Fair Frome that runs a lot of Frome's work around poverty, and they have masses of stuff that's out of date, and so they're particularly interested in composting that. And one of the things which I'm fascinated in seeing is when we get Perito or whoever to analyze this a few months down the line, a lot of that food, to be honest, on the side of when you look at the cans, it's got a load of chemicals in there and a load of things. It's not organic, it's out of date stuff out of cans that's going in. So will all those bacteria and microbes and all that wonderful world have taken that all to bits and put it together again into something that's just as good as the other place where we're doing this, which is outside the medical centre, which is all organic and funky. So I'm going to be really interested to see how those 2 work. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we're now working. I got some money to work with an organisation called Glimpse, and Glimpse are a really fascinating sort of PR agency that's gone rogue. They're interested. They're doing lots of stuff about how you can tell messages in ways. They're basically into undermining the whole advertising industry, but they're quite a big organization. They were doing lots of stuff on climate change, but they're working with us on how to how to get the whole concept of a closed economy out into the wider community in ways where it hits everybody, not just, you know, white middle class me, but people who wouldn't otherwise be thinking about this stuff. We've had a first workshop which was brilliant, with about 40 people at it. There's a real enthusiasm. It seems a great zeitgeist for this. So in that context, Loop Compost is really just an example. It's like, look, here's something which works. You can take something which is somebody's waste, and a very short time later, well, about 9 months later, you can produce a really, really staggeringly good living soil. You know, and we've shown we can do that, and we've shown that that can be economically viable and pay people to do it. So then the next question is, so what now? What next? And so Glimpse are working on that with us. And the intention of that, the intention of the funders and of us and Glimpse, is that it won't be, you know, I always get worried about replicable, in the sense that, you know, people do a project and think that you can just wind out everywhere. But I really hope that we get loads of learning from that, which will be, which will be interesting and useful to the wider network, in terms of how we message and how we get ideas about, the whole thought of taking things around in circles. So I think that's where I am today, Tom. I won't go. If you go onto Loop Frome's website, there's 2 really good films that we've had made of what we do. So if you want that story, it's there. And I'm really hoping that the Mighty Network, one of the things it does is to allow us to share. It's so fantastic. I mean, I love coming to these meetings because it gives me hope in mankind, really, or humankind, I should say, shouldn't I? Because it's so good to hear of all these funky things that people are doing. So I'm really hoping that we can get those stories up, so that there's a way that we can find them. One of the things that we can tag, or whatever the correct term is, so we can find out what's local. And yeah, I'm looking forward. Martyn and we've got a date that I need to shuffle, and then we'll meet, which I'm really looking forward to. So thanks.
Amazing, thank you so much, Peter. Yeah, no, I'm just responding to your point of just like, yeah, after hearing Martyn's talk about the value of like, bokashi compost. Yeah, I do think it's such an interesting question, but I just wanted to say what you draw attention to your compost sale, Peter, because I've never seen anyone do a better compost sale. It was brilliant. You spread so much. You made it super exclusive. Like invite, you got people signing up to come to an event where you would release your compost, and then you literally sold it for £1 a litre to all people of all ages from your community. And got them to value the biology in it. And I do think that is key, is that we've got to get people to really value both the compost that can be created, the life that it supports, and the very food waste that they throw away, and stop seeing it's food waste. We've got to get that like out of our language. It's food for life. It's food for soil. It's food for everything that we depend on. And yeah, I thought you nailed that. And I do think, yeah, biodiversity compost, or complete compost, as they call it on the soil food web, that's one thing. And I do think like £1 a litre is the minimum we should sell it for, because we've got to create jobs here. Like we've got to create local employment and have these systems sustaining themselves in this world where we have to pay so much to live. But then, perhaps there's another scale of compost, like at the moment we've got the garden waste compost, which is basically the price it costs for a 50-ton truck to pay for the fuel and the driver to deliver it to you, because it is actually reduced waste. It has been made at such high temperatures, it's got really very, very little value. All the gardeners that have ever used it will say it, well, mostly it's very bad for plants. So we've got to sort of cut that out and use these other methods of living compost. Bokashi is living compost. It's just using different microbes. And maybe that will have a different price because it will take less labor. It involves less turning. But yeah, all of this is something I hope we can establish and share through the community. And yeah, so much to learn about that. And yeah, Nev, you were going to share a couple of things with us, dude. Would that still be?
Yeah, no problem at all. Can I have hosting?
1,000,000%.
Got a few, but yeah, totally agree with what you were saying about sort of new things coming along. I don't think any one particular thing is going to save us. It's going to be a myriad of different things, and biodiversity in the way we work as well as in the soil is important, isn't it? So it's I'm sure we'll find a way of combining most of these techniques, or if not all of them.
You're now the host, Nev.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll be quick. I work in a couple of different capacities. I work here in North Birmingham, in Warsaw, in allotments and opening allotments to the public, as they are generally speaking a closed space. I'm working with schools and using the ridden as a good way of changing food waste into a resource. I'm also well into worms. Worms are my thing. And I think they're great. But yeah, as of late, I'm getting into, I mean, I've kind of used Bokashi before, but having Martyn as a sounding board and the information that he's bringing through is brilliant. And it's basically the sort of mass that you're saving is really sort of turned me on to EM1 and how we're not basically just oxidizing, because it was always my issue with compost is you start with these huge piles and you end up with so little, and it's evident where it's going. And obviously we're trying to keep things in the soil and in the ground rather than in the air. But yeah, that's another subject for us all, no doubt, on another evening. But yeah, I thought I'd just show you a few slides that we have centered around Derby. This is a overview of Derby in a really nice kind of Roald Dahl-esque way, and it was done by Gareth, who is the head architect of the Eden project. So we have signed as DTE Derby, we have signed a partnership deal with the Eden project, and they are putting us through a really cool mentorship program that is allowing us to access their contacts and their networks in general, which has been amazing. And with DTE Derby, I mean, the No-diggity stuff, a bit of a cheesy kind of name now, look back on it, but that was more my sort of staunch kind of, I'm going to fix the world by being really, you know, sort of I don't know how to put it, but really close to the soil. And then DTE stuff is quite a pragmatic look at things, and it's more sort of meeting people where they're at. So we're looking at doing everything from a inner city farm to a botanical cocktail bar, and that is the project that I am leading on. And that's this one in this bottom corner here, and it's going to be a cocktail bar with a local brewers called White Peak, and they use the water from the Derwent to cool their systems, and they've got a really cool narrative. So we'll be working with them, and we're also working with Toast. I don't know if you've heard of Toast, but they're a brewery that use waste items to create beer. So they use literally toast, breadcrumbs that comes out of factories, and banana skins and all that sort of stuff, and they create really nice beers. So yeah, that's the idea of that. But yeah, the thing that brought the Eden project to Derby was because it has quite a small population. So it has 287,000 people, which is actually less than my town of Warsaw in North Birmingham. It's a really diverse population, lots of cultures. It has a really nice river that runs through the middle, and it's got it's got the Peak District right on its doorstep, essentially the gateway to the Peak District. So Tim Smith thought that sounded like a really promising area to maybe try and change the blueprint of the Eden project. Obviously, up until now, they've done sort of big capital investment attractions. So it's still an attraction. You go, you pay your money, you go in and you wind your way through. You end up at the gift shop, you spend some more money, and you come out thinking, crikey, that was a lot of money to see a few plants in a biodome. He kindly admits that himself. He's quite happy to admit that, and he thinks maybe if we sort of split that up into smaller attractions, let's say, and have it as a grassroots organisation, that it would maybe be a different prospect. So Jamie, the founder of DTE, he's a cheeky little get, and he basically just sent an email to Tim and said, "Hey up, mate, fancy doing a thing or what?" And he said, "Yeah, let's do it." So yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Since then, we've been mentored by the Eden Project. So this is kind of, this one here is a look at what if we didn't put big concrete barriers down the side of the river to control the flooding. We actually had a wetlands. What if we had one of the biggest rooftop gardens in the UK? What if we had an urban farm that was tied to the schools and the colleges? And what if we had a cocktail bar that had a market garden next to it and grew all the botanicals, and we did crazy brewing on site, etc., etc. And then we can tie all of these projects together. We're working with Severn Trent and their SUDS programs, so sustainable drainage systems basically, and it's just putting greenery back into cities basically, and putting compost into cities and putting soil into cities, so that will stop the runoff and the pressure on their systems. We've just also signed a deal with Derby University, and we're working on 5 acres of their land to reimagine the commons. So commons have kind of ended up just being sort of grasslands, and people don't even put their animals on it anymore. So it's how can we get the academics and the community groups and everybody together on a green space, give everybody a little bit of space to grow stuff, and let's see how that works out. So yeah, it's been a mad week for us. We've basically been given 35 grand by the council to put this inner city orchard and market garden right in the centre of town. These are some of the pictures that Gareth imagined. This is a big steel frame that was a warehouse. It's now just a steel frame, but we thought, what if we just put glass in the steel frame and make it into a kind of a Eden-esque cool cocktail bar, and see what we can do in the way of biodiversity, and sort of, you know, giving people a place that has the message of why we need to change our food systems, why we need to change our fibre systems, but not only just why, but the how. So small demonstrations along the lines of how we can actually change it through inner city composting, aquaponics, all of the usual things we talk about, hugelculture, etc., etc. And this is a little view of it from above. So we're starting phase 1, which is the actual garden on the right hand side, and phase 2 will follow at some point after. So yeah, this is just another view of the town again, and this is a 2-acre site that we're going to put some sort of future farm on. Not really sure how we're going to get there, when we're going to get there, but it's on the cards, and we're working through the layers of bureaucracy to be able to get on this land. Part of the Electric Daisy, which is what the botanical bar is called, will be, it's in the cathedral quarter, so it's an area that's managed by the cathedral, and it's you pay a bid. I'm sure you've heard of them. We have Jewellery Quarter here in Birmingham. You pay a bid amount, and they run certain things. So we're starting a compost club in town. It's going to be powered by electric scooters instead of electric bikes, and we're going to be working predominantly with the businesses to take their waste and to encourage them to recycle, to compost, to think more sustainably, and possibly regeneratively. So that with a little bit of trepidation, because I'm not sure whether that's possible yet or not, but we're going to have a go. So yeah, that's the current project that's happening in Derby. Quite exciting, but yeah, you need to come and see and come and be a part of what we're doing. If anybody wants to help out, we've got some volunteer programs which we're starting in the new year. I know Christina's already got in contact with me from Nottingham, and finding out that she has got a microscope and did the soil food web course is brilliant for us, no doubt. So I'm going to be bending her ear on that one. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. I don't want to go anymore, waste any more time. Yeah, that's
wow. Absolutely wow. That's super cool, dude. Congratulations on
it's exciting. It's exciting. And hopefully all councils can, I mean, all councils are going to be looking at this whether they like it or not. And if we can do this in Derby at the time of the sort of the smallest amount of public spending that we're ever going to see, if this is possible now, then anything's possible, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. Gosh, that's so good. Well done. Okay, that's absolutely epic, and that leads on really nicely to Kat, who's just said in the comments, that they've been talking a lot about reimagining the commons up in Scotland. So, Kat, I hear you've been teaming up with Propagate, who are amazing, and I'd love to hear what you're up to. Thank you.
Well, in contrast to your beautifully slick presentation, Nev, that looks lovely. I really appreciate getting the time to speak to you all. I've been having some random thoughts. So I started this network. I joined the network when I was just growing food in a community project locally, and knew I wanted to start some community composting. Didn't really know how that was going to happen. In the last year, I've joined Propagate, which is a collective mainly in Glasgow and southwest of Scotland, and we're involved in lots of like community food growing, but we're also involved at a kind of system level and trying to change the food system in Glasgow and down in southwest Scotland. We started the regenerative farming network down in southwest Scotland. We've just started, I took a note this morning, the Scottish Agroecology Action Group with the Soil Association. So like Propagate as an organisation, as a collective, is involved in lots of different things at different levels. So for where I'm at, I was thinking, how do I find funding for my small scale compost club? And I started to look at the lottery funding and went down a rabbit hole and discovered the Climate Action Fund, which is a massive fund for massive projects. Propagate have previously and currently have applied for Climate Action Fund. It's been us that have applied for it, but it's to run the Glasgow Community Food Network, which is a big project. So we have experience of applying for it. Although it wasn't our name on the application, it was people who work for our collective. So I started to think, right, there's all this money there. It's for projects that address climate and they address nature. Mm-hmm. And what we're talking about are those two things. Like, we want to improve the soil, and we want to do that because of nature and because of the climate.
Mm-hmm. Just Stop Oil say the climate and ecological emergency, don't they? That's like, that's where we're at. Yeah.
So maybe I've had too much coffee the night I thought about this, but is there the potential for like massive collaboration between, I mean, this network already exists with lots of organisations and people who are already involved in doing this. As Propagate, as one of the partners, is there any interest in trying to kind of flesh out some sort of idea of creating a UK-wide compost, not scheme, but some way that we could actually purchase composters, we could deliver the education, the training, which could create financially sustainable community groups in pockets all over the UK. And the Climate Action Fund, it also has a kind of smaller scale development fund. Like, it's not smaller scale, it's like £50,000, I think, or it's a lot of money. So it was basically just to kind of like put these thoughts out there and see if anyone is maybe as crazy as myself, and is up for kind of like putting our heads together and seeing if this is a possibility to like pull a project together, put the flesh on the bones of a project.
Mm-hmm. Great. I mean, Kat, thank you. Yeah, I think that would be a really great group. We could create a group called like the Propagate Composting Project or Network or whatever name you come up with it, and then everyone that's interested could join the group, and all of the useful links and I remember we had our compost club started with a successful Climate Action Fund bid that a group in Brighton did, and then they bought a compost station from us, and that was very early sort of boost to sort of get us moving with it. And it's like you say, it's a huge fund. We actually shared very early on the successful bid that they did, and it was so simple. It just linked, like, you know, composting with climate and then community food growing, and it's just like tick tick tick, like those are the boxes they want to hear about. And yeah, there's definitely ways we could get funding to build our community compost stations. You know, that's why I sort of set up Poultry Soil to be like VAT registered and stuff, because we want to make the Jura composters more affordable, so that people can have, you know, everyone takes 10 households food waste or one business's food waste out of the waste stream, and the Rydans can do several times that, but cost several times more. And so they're all really valuable technologies that would be super eligible for funding. And likewise, stuff that we've only just seen, like Joshua Sparks building those beautiful wooden boxes, making really amazing high energy bokashi compost. That could be stuff that would be super eligible for funding. So yeah, I think it's all here. Like, let's get some funding. Great.
If anyone's like interested in getting involved, Propagate, we're having a development meeting at the start of December, kind of looking at our 5-year plan, and this is one of the things that I'm kind of taking to the table in that. And it would be nice to be able to take it and say there's other organizations. So yeah, because it's not the type of application. If it was UK wide, it would be ideal, because they're looking for kind of cross borders and multi-partner.
Yeah,
better.
Wicked. Well, I would encourage you, Kat, to put that on the calendar if you could, when your meeting is, and then I can help you invite everyone here. If they don't see it organically through the forum, then hopefully that could, yeah, start the ball rolling. If we can get some people here coming to join that conversation with you, sounds great. Thank you. Great. I kind of want to open it up now, guys. Any kind of questions to any of the people that have just spoken, and we'd love to hear like where you're at with your composting journeys. Any questions that you might need to sort of ask the room about. Let's just try and help to sort of support. I mean, just Greg and Matt, who are both here. I know you're both running fungi businesses, and you both asked about how to best compost. I imagine you're interested in making valuable compost from the spent mushroom spawn, because that's your biggest, surplus, right? So that would be a really interesting thing to ask the room about. Like, Martyn, do you have any experience with what happens when you bokashi spent mushroom compost? Can you make something valuable out of it? Because I'll just share my 2 cents. I've tried hot composting it. Doesn't work at all. Doesn't have any energy left, and is not nitrogen rich at all, and doesn't work. So my thought was the best thing I've done with spent mushroom compost is actually dry it out and use it as a brown, and it's just a fungal rich carbon hydrogen substrate that can be mixed into compost. But I use it more in the like maturing phases. I don't put it in the tumblers. I use it to sort of bulk out, add that's where I've got to with composting spent mushroom compost. I just throwing that out there because I'd love to hear.
Spelt mushroom, you're exactly right. Yeah, unfortunately, because obviously the process of growing mushrooms will take a lot of energy out of the structure of the soil. But you can use it as a carrier, so you could use it, as you just said, to dry it, and I would inoculate it with some microorganisms and use it as a carrier. The problem with anything, when you draw that energy out, it's more of a bulker than it is to do with actually creating kind of value to it. But that bulk does help with spacing in that soil structure. So Josh does this thing called a bokashi reactor, which for me is, I've got a trademark. It's his baby, and it's nothing to do with me. But he does a layering system to try and create that structure of different kind of variations in diversity. And so, yeah, definitely you could put it into that kind of system for it to work.
Nice. Yeah. And then I would also say that it's a valuable mulch. So a lot of this stuff is like, if it's not good composting, the soil always needs covering that helps reduce weeds, slow evaporation, make soils more resilient to climate change. So yeah, I think the best thing to do with a lot of these materials that have already had a yield from them, like been spent essentially, is just to add them as a layer to soil. So teaming up with gardeners and farmers and getting it to go there is probably the best shout with some of this.
I wanted to add a few points, if that's right.
Yeah.
So it's really quite simple. You can just grow mycelium on the land in situ. You just sort of add your organic matter, your wood chips, your sawdust shavings, straw, cardboard. Just chuck it all on the land and add the mycelium, and then the mycelium makes the compost for you, produces a load of food within a year, sometimes a lot sooner. And then you can just plant straight onto that. You can plant fruit trees or food crops. It's like a no-dig system, but without having to make the compost. The mycelium just makes the compost for you. And in the process, the waste product is food or medicine. But a really cool thing is, like, if you can leave like a portion of the mushrooms, if you left like 50% of the mushrooms in place, you didn't harvest them, then those mushrooms are like an important life cycle for a lot of insects. So all the insects can now like create a lot more insect biomass, and then that has like a whole trophic cascade through the ecosystem, so that it helps like bird clutch sizes to increase because there's more food for them. And you can even train different mycelium to fruit at different times of the year to get that effect. And they're all like high value gourmet mushrooms, and there's a huge market for high end food, and it could just all be reinvested into growing more and more mycelium. So I really wanted to create like a research center or a research network where I could just produce loads and loads of mycelium, and just people can experiment with ways how to grow it out in the land in different ways, in hedgerows, on north side, on south side. How does it fare on slopes? Can you put them on contours along the middle to stop erosion and runoff? It can be quite simple as I've got a project of wanting to use bracken, because bracken is like everywhere. And if we can like harvest lots of it, put it into giant piles and just add loads of really, really hungry like oyster mushrooms, a native variety that I've foraged from the New Forest Ancient Woodlands. So it's like the best biodiversity, the oldest genetics in the country. See if we can make giant piles of this, organic matter, and position them in bits of the landscape to get different ecological or hydrological effects, like riparian buffer zones along farms. Farms can take their like hedgerow cutting waste, just shred it, put it on the ground, add mycelium. You've now got a whole new food source where you can put it around tree plantings. So in terms of like reforesting, there's like now a financial incentive to reforest, because if you can put down a select amount of biodiverse trees, add down the waste that you can get from urban centres or from agricultural waste, the mycelium around it is going to help that tree establish really, really quickly. And you then get more money from that crop than it cost to plant the tree. So now you kickstart that process. That's kind of a barrier for a lot of farmers, is who's subsidizing what for me to do which ecological thing. Whereas if you can just buy a 20 quid bag of mycelium, find your waste, plant it, and now you've got 100 quid worth of mushrooms to eat for your family, or to sell, or to have in a food network. And you just planted 1,000 trees, so now you've got £20,000 worth of mushrooms, available for your local community, and drive that funds back into it. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's what I think as well.
So, Greg, can we get mushroom spawn from you to? I mean, could if we wanted to do like mushroom composting as a side thing to our local composting projects, could we? Are you supplying that yet? Like, because I mean, I was looking for King Stropharia. Someone, the Soil Food Web people told me that is the best mushroom for getting the fungal biomass of compost up, and so I was looking to make that alongside it and then add it to try and get the fungal biomass up to be good for growing food faster. And
I mean, I've been like a home grower for like 4 years, and I built a lab this year. That took a lot longer than I expected. A lot of personal growth happened this year. Like, I finally quit my job to go full time on it, and just like a huge learning curve about business and mushroom growing myself. And as I'm sure most people here, this year has been quite an intense year. But I just come to the realization that what's needed is just such a large amount of volume in such a large go to just experiment on such a scale that you can just find the answers so quickly. And the big sterilizers are not even that much money. And in fact, you can actually make a lot from like recycled farm agricultural equipment, like these big milk pressure vessels. And it's very simple stuff to set up. I've seen a huge movement in America growing, and like all around the world. I can now see where that like next level is. You know, at my level, it's a lot of manual labor to produce a significant amount, because I'm still quite, you know, I've got like 5 pressure cookers. I can do a lot, but, you know, not enough really to get going. So with a bit of investment or something to get some large scale pressure cookers, you know, I can do like 25 bags at the moment in a day. And that probably is about a 3-day labor window plus weeks of it growing in a cupboard or in a room or an incubating chamber. With those, you can make 1,000 blocks in the same time period. Wow. So like with that extra equipment, then there's going to be a lot of mycelium available. I'd
love to set up a fungal cultivation presentation with you and Matt and others. That it sounds so interesting. Like like you say, it's all about the economics of it, isn't it? And
well, I mean, like, it's a crucial thing. We need to give farmers and anyone like a financial incentive to invest in their own quality food. You know, at the moment, it's the most valuable thing to do is that we potentially have a food that stores carbon, starts soil building processes, because like those mushrooms, as they decay, there's loads of these bacteria that will then feed on it, and that's a really essential combination of microbes in the soil. So if you've got like a field denuded of life, you know, and it's really, you know, we all know the state of soils in this country. You know, if you can add organic matter, mycelium, then the bacteria, worms are attracted to it. They absolutely love mycelium. You've got birds that feed on the insects. They can bring in seeds. You can actually, natural succession, accelerate. Paul Stamets has done a few projects on it, and it's really fascinating to see how that could play out. And obviously, I'm linked with the Eden Project, doing my master's at the moment. I've been to several unis and got links there as well. Started the Permaculture Society at the Bournemouth Uni, and there's lots of young students looking for good projects, good things to study. So we can actually get a huge, and again, there's other people who work at Edinburgh and Reading, and you can create a network in the educational academic field, because there's lots and lots of people that just want to study something cool. And if we can have 100 people put their attention on and study this thing, then we can really understand how much carbon is stored, how much food did we get, you know, how are those things working? So I think it's really essential. There's a whole, you know, shared education platform that you're trying to achieve here. Get some great video content of how to do an industrial scale size, you know, rewilding, soil building, food and medicine production.
Beautiful. Wow, so good. Thank you, dude. That's awesome. Any questions for Greg on that, or questions too?
I just had a suggestion. Look up sawdust barrel sterilizers.
Okay.
You can burn sawdust for 7 hours straight, and you can put a big 200-litre barrel on top and sterilize 30 blocks in a go. A really low-tech method. And also, we have to remember that fungi do, cultivating them is quite energy intensive. So coming up with or sort of figuring out how much energy are we using as we prepare this mycelium, and how does it balance with how much mushroom grows, and I think with the idea for the grant, for the network, I think it's a good idea to be ambitious, and maybe one day we could all be sat here getting paid to sit here learning from each other and sharing knowledge, and maybe making some of these courses. If the money's out there, then let's be ambitious and maybe do something collectively if people have got the time and energy to do that.
I think that's a great idea. Why don't we could all help each other in the creation of courses to do with our special field of interest, and present them together. So like we've just started the topics. You could find a talk. It could be a directory for good courses that could be delivered in a certain engaging way. Let's do as much of that as we can to support the spread of knowledge in this world, because it's so important, and everyone's expressing such interesting things that needs to happen. So yeah, thank you for sharing on that guys. That's really cool. I've been going on a bit of a journey with the course. I did a course, I got some funding, and I've spent like hundreds of hours writing a course. I've got a script, but then that was all happened in the COVID time when everyone was like doing online courses. And now I've found out that the world's kind of changed like a lot, and people don't just buy online courses now. They have to be a certain way. Like I was advised to break it all down into 10-minute modules and really tailor it to specific learning outcomes, because these days people are going to want it in their pocket, in their phone, and they'll do like 10 minutes on a bus journey or a train journey, and then you could have 50 10-minute modules that completed your specific thing. So I would quite like to do a course on actually just focusing on local composting. That's what the Jora company uses there. That's what they make a great piece of technology for local composting. And yeah, that's a whole topic in itself, isn't it? It's just that's a whole thing. What is the best way of doing local composting, and how, and maybe let's tap into these different movements like the localization movement and get them to promote the course, share the course with their huge networks. I'm sure Helena Norbert Hodge would be behind it, and they've got massive global networks, so all of that is possible. Have you guys tapped into the fungal cultivation grow cycle? Have you seen their courses? They've got quite an active community. Are you?
Yeah, I started. That was like the first course I ever learned, and stayed at low tech for quite a while. But I did buy more commercial lab equipment, and I can see the efficiencies in it. And with some it's not even that expensive, the equipment, and it's large paddle mixers. It's just things to take a lot of bulk stuff out. You get they're not that high tech, to be honest. You can get some crazy autoclaves for science, and they're really high tech, chip based, and probably wouldn't have much resilience in them going forward. 20, 30 years, you want a really robust machinery. But yeah, spending 10 grand on some big sterilizers would just push what you can do in mycology. Take it from that low tech, actually go up to something a bit serious, and you'll have mycelium that you won't know what to do with. The amount that you can produce with just a focus on growing it outdoors, because the energy used for it. Someone mentioned earlier about how energy intensive it is. Those boilers you can just run on burning. Just under. It's you can get a big keg, fill it with water, attach it to a pressure vessel, and just boil the water. That's all you need to do. You can do that with a biochar kiln, and I had ideas of how to create big biochar kilns and the whole circular economy, adding the compost waste with the biochar and vermicomposting. Everything you guys are doing, I've had a thought of linking together, and it all will come in some time. But the mycelium is just such a rapid potential to increase so much carbon content in England. So I think it's worth spending a bit of money on certain expensive high-tech equipment, and it would really
my thinking
accelerate.
as well is the scale that you're talking about, Greg, and you've concluded has got to be reached, is actually totally aligned with the scale of what's needed in the industrial farming soils. They have completely lost their fungi. So if we can grow mycelium so fast, which you're saying we can with the right equipment, then that's the right scale. It's mycelium cultivation for farm restoration, for soil restoration, farm scale. Sure. Whereas maybe for that's the cool thing about
the thing with mushroom growing is that you can grow it in as many different ways as you want. It's why it's quite complicated to get into, and why a training course is good. And it took me 4 years of mistakes to learn. you know, but you can grow them in as many different ways as there are people growing it. It seems they're like really, really interesting and fascinating. But there's just like so much more potential, more ways of doing it. We just need to like have a bit of ambition and just grow it. The result will be we'll get a lot of food and medicine. You know, and then there's the whole biomaterials and biofabrication, and like that's another whole waste stream that can be turned into microboards. And you know, it's like trying to research into those things at different scales. What can you do at home scale? What can you then do at a large industrial scale? And I think just like really focusing in the next few years on mycology research and pulling together some decent projects would be invaluable.
Definitely. Amazing. Has anyone tried oxygen? Have you tried pasteurizing substrate with like the anaerobic conditions? That I've shared it before, but Paul Stamets does it. He soaks wood chips in water and then drains it.
Yeah.
And then you
simple, so low tech, like
super low energy, right? And then you can just put in some fast mushroom spawn, and you get mushrooms from a
that's the thing. All you have to put in is the grain spawn, and you know it would probably be about 5 kilos of grain spawn for a IBC tank full of wood chip, you know. And that's just not that's like, and you can have 1,000 of those bags sterilized in 2 days, you know. So we're talking, you can have quite a few IBC tanks of sawdust and shavings, or pine cones even, or, you know, so there's a lot of like organic matter we could find. Just, soak it in water for 2 weeks. That's just rainwater collection off the roof, drain it off. That can go into a grey water recycle system. It's the most simple way of producing quite a lot of mycelium. And then you can put that out onto the land in all these different places. So yeah, it is quite possible to do this.
Thanks for your comment there, Ryan, about advice on the funding from the lottery, not to go too heavy on system change. I think that's good advice, because that's just how big funders work, isn't it? They don't want to change the system that they're a part of, but they do want to make it better for and tick all these social boxes that they have.
I could say more on that, but not
would you?
in a recorded conversation.
Fair enough. On that note, I might is there anyone else with a question, sort of contribution, comment, spark of anything that's come up that they'd like to say while we're still recorded? Yes, Ryan, are you there still?
Yeah. So I want to go like the other side, away from hands dirty and to a spreadsheet. Question that came to mind when Peter was talking. Excuse me. He said Loop are predominantly working with catering outlets and businesses, and so what I didn't say is, as well as being a founding member of a plant nursery, I'm also going to be starting as a sole trader doing commercial composting. And my business plan is to work initially with cafes and restaurants. My concern is pitching to them at the start of a recession, getting them to pay for compost collection. So I wonder how that's been received and what noises there are from your customers, Peter.
So they were paying already, Ryan. See what I mean? So the price they're paying us is pretty much similar, slightly more usually. But actually, we did some research on this, and there was a huge range of prices. Fascinatingly, there are about 15 different companies picking up stuff in Frome with a vast range. But so we're basically the same. So in that sense, they're not paying any different. But what they are doing, we have tried to really work to make them feel and to actually be sort of part of a family. So they're getting spin-off into social media, into being part of this thing, into us talking about them, so telling the story. We got some really nice photos done of each of the people who run the businesses, which we've used a couple of times in public events. So they're getting that side. But in terms of the straight money, they were paying for this stuff to be collected. They're now paying for it to be collected better. So that's the basic answer.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because where I'm looking, there is no food waste collection. There's no option. It's all going to landfill. So it's the challenge is to then convince them. Not challenge, opportunity, eh? but opportunities for them to pay for it to not go to landfill.
So they're putting it in. Are they not paying for that landfill?
Yeah, and it's a percentage of their. It's not the biggest bill. The recycling's a lot.
It'll be pretty little that they're paying.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're allowed to put their food waste in with all their whatever, their recycling or anything else they fancy. So, okay, well, I can see that is more. That is clearly going to be more of it. More of a challenge. Well, yeah, my thought would be to find ways of telling that story, which I mean, check out the Loop Frome in that sense, because that does some of that. I mean, you know.
Yeah. It's hard in areas where maybe, you know, the client, the residents aren't already green, certain newspaper reading, kind of, you know, consciousness, I guess, because like in Brighton and Lewis, we were able to offer them a living soil approved window sticker, you know, that the clients recognize might be attractive to people. So that's something you could do, make a symbol. But if it's in an area where people don't necessarily know or care about that already, then it's a bigger struggle, isn't it?
I'd be cautious of some of the rhetoric there, because I don't think it's just about personal politics. It's about class and lack of privilege, particularly in the areas that I have too many hats. I'm also a director of a new CIC for a CSA, Muddy Carrot CSA, and we're working in areas with high social deprivation. And these folk want to feed their kids good quality organic food, but they don't read The Guardian. And they are pretty much all on universal credit. All their kids get free school meals. It's still shit food. But their allotments are full up, you know, and they're great growers. So
fair.
They do care. They don't have money.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
I think this is the challenge, isn't it? When we're looking at making a network across the UK, it's that every place has its own context, doesn't it? And every place has its own challenges, and it's totally, you know, different. For us, we're working in a city, so we can kind of play each business off each other and say who's going to be more sustainable, and that has an effect. But in Ryan's case, that's completely different. So yeah, part of the challenge, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if we think like the living soil thing is universal, or has a universal appeal, then, you know, maybe we could have, I mean, I'd be happy to, I've already shared a logo with the community composting network, but if you guys wanted to have, I've just got the living soil like badge. If you wanted to use that as an offering to anyone doing a business collection, it's open source. It's like I'll post it on the group, and you can, if it would be an attractive thing that, you know, all of this venue's food waste goes to creating living soil, and that would have appeal, then take it and run with it, or find something more suitable for your area. But I don't know. Does
anybody know of any certification that is better than the current PAS? Not, which obviously isn't really a certification, but is there anything around compost that anybody knows of that is slightly of a high level and about living soil, apart from what you're talking about?
So I'll chip in. We weren't going to talk about this tonight, but maybe we need to have a conversation about new regulations that are coming in.
Yeah.
There will be opportunities for us in the future to have living soil. So definitely not a conversation to have now. Let's have a chat maybe in December about, you know, the new regulations that are coming in for EU. But don't see it as a negative. Honestly, I've looked for it. There's some real positives. Join the forum. I'll have a discussion on there. It's probably the best way to move forward.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. That sounds really good. Yeah, but I mean, in a nutshell, it's going to set microbial standards, isn't it? Which is great, because that's going to get rid of the garden waste compost right there, and allow much better quality stuff to be produced.